All right, buckle up because we're diving into a rom-com that's more than just your typical love story.
More than meets the eye.
This film, Imagine Me and You, actually had a huge cultural impact, especially for LGBTQ audiences, and we're going to break down why.
I'm intrigued. It's fascinating how a seemingly simple rom-com can become such a cultural touchstone.
Totally. And to help us unpack this, we're taking a cue from an episode of Les Gets Talking.
Oh, I love that show. They're on the Daily Mojo channel, right?
Like, why is Imagine Me and You seen as, like, essential viewing for queer women even now?
Right. What makes it stand out from other WLW films? It's a really good question.
For sure. And I understand that we got to look at how this movie, even with its fear.
Absolutely. I think what's really striking about this film even just is how it takes a familiar premise, like the whole,
Yeah.
meet cute leading to unexpected feelings,
Right.
and uses it to explore something much, much deeper. We're talking about societal expectations, the pressure to conform, and the courage to embrace your true self.
And it seems like the film wastes no time throwing us into the thick of it. I mean, we meet Rachel, who's about to marry her seemingly perfect fiancé, Hack, and bam, enter Luce, the wedding florist.
Right.
And suddenly everything changes.
Yeah, it's that sudden attraction, that instant connection that Rachel feels towards Luce
Yeah.
that throws her entire world into question. And you're right, the film doesn't shy away from that. It would have been easy to portray Rachel's feelings as just simple cold feet, like, I'm having second thoughts about the wedding. Something much, much more profound,
Right. Like, this isn't just about a change of heart before the wedding day. This is about Rachel confronting fundamental questions about her own identity and desires. It makes you wonder, like, what would happen if we allowed ourselves to question those societal norms that are often thrust upon us, especially in the context of love and relationships?
Exactly. And the film, it cleverly uses seemingly small details to highlight this internal struggle that she's going through. Like the fact that Rachel feels compelled to rent lesbian, almost as a way to decipher her own feelings. It reveals a sense of confusion, a desire to understand something that she may have never allowed herself to explore before.
Jitters.
It's a brilliant way to show that internal battle that she's facing. On the one hand, she has this picture-perfect life, all planned out, the wedding, the life with Heck, everything she thought she wanted. But on the other hand, there's this undeniable attraction to Luce, this feeling that challenges everything she thought she knew about herself.
And what's so interesting is that the film doesn't paint Luce as this,
Right.
manic pixie dream girl who's just there to shake things up for Rachel.
Right.
Luce is very much her own person.
Precisely. Luce isn't just a plot device or a symbol of Rachel's kind of awakening.
Right.
She's a woman with her own dreams and aspirations and a life that already existed before Rachel entered the picture.
Yeah.
And we see glimpses of that in, the way she runs her flower shop, her close bond with her friend Edie,
Right.
and even in the way she interacts with, Rachel's younger sister, Henrietta.
It's like the writer wanted to ensure that Luce is seen as an equal to Rachel.
Absolutely.
Not just a catalyst for her journey.
Yeah, they both have their own stories, their own baggage, their own perspectives on love and life.
Right. And speaking of their paths converging, we have to talk about that pivotal scene where Rachel asks about the meaning of different flowers. I mean, come on, Luce telling her that lilies mean, I dare you to love me. That's not exactly subtle.
Right. It's such a bold and unconventional way to express feelings, especially in the context of their circumstances. But that's what makes it so powerful. Luce isn't afraid to challenge Rachel.
Yeah.
To push her to confront what she's trying so hard to deny. Yes, the kiss acts as a kind of a catalyst in a way,
Okay.
pushing Rachel to finally confront her feelings for Luce head on.
Right.
But it's important to note it's not just a fleeting moment of passion.
Right. Yeah.
Their connection runs much, much deeper. It hints at a genuine bond that goes beyond just, physical attraction.
Which makes Heck's eventual realization all the more heartbreaking. I mean, he's not a villain in this story. He genuinely cares for Rachel. And that's where the subversion starts. Instead of painting Heck as this, like, obstacle, the film actually gives him this genuine friendship with Luce.
Which is so different from the typical jealous rival trope we see so often.
Right. And it makes such a difference for the entire tone. You're not sitting there, like, rooting against Heck. You find yourself invested in everyone's happiness.
Exactly. It brings a whole other level of nuance to how we view love and relationships. Yeah, it really emphasizes the complexity of his emotions.
Right.
He experiences this mix of betrayal and confusion, but also a sense of understanding that he can't be what Rachel truly needs.
Oh, wow.
And I think the film avoids easy answers or those black and white portrayals of right and wrong. Instead, it highlights that messy reality of love, loss, and self-discovery.
And ultimately, does everyone find their own version of happiness?
Heck, despite his good intentions and genuine love for Rachel, he embodies those very expectations that she's grappling with.
Yeah.
He represents that safe, conventional path, the life that everyone expects her to want. And his obliviousness to her internal struggle just highlights that disconnect between what society deems acceptable and what Rachel is truly yearning for.
Chemistry between Piper Perabo and Lena Headey? For good reason.
Oh, absolutely. It's electric.
It really is. And I think believable chemistry is make or break any rom-com.
100%. Especially when a film is breaking new ground like this one.
Yeah.
You have to feel that connection. Otherwise, the whole thing falls apart.
No chemistry, no movie.
And what I find so clever about this film is how it takes these classic rom-com tropes, but because we're seeing it through the lens of these WLW characters, it takes on a whole new meaning.
So true. Like, we're so used to the boy meets girl formula, but here it's about the power of connection between these two women.
Is the goal to try and fit queer stories into those existing frameworks, or should there be a push to go beyond those tropes?
Right.
It's complex, right? Because some argue that aiming for that normalcy in storytelling can actually promote acceptance. Like, hey, we're just like you. We fall in love. We have relationship drama. We experience joy and heartbreak.
It's showing a different perspective of a shared human experience.
And for some viewers, especially those who are maybe just figuring out their own sexuality, seeing that on screen can be incredibly validating.
And that really hit home for me growing up. Most of the WLW films they'd seen were heavy, depressing, and often ended in death.
Yeah, that's a heavy dose of reality.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about that impact, of seeing yourself reflected on screen.
For sure. It's such an important point because queer cinema, and especially lesbian cinema, has often focused on these like heavier themes, tragedy, loss, social stigma.
Almost like those were the only stories considered valid if they were about struggle.
Right. It's like there was this unspoken rule that queer stories couldn't just be about love and joy and happy endings.
So for Imagine Me and You to come along with this like lighthearted, hopeful vibe.
Totally. It was a breath of fresh air. Suddenly there's this film that dares to imagine a happy ending for its queer characters.
And not just any happy ending. It felt earned and authentic because the characters felt so real.
Exactly. And I think that's why it works so well as this kind of like entry-level film for people who maybe aren't as familiar with queer cinema.
It's approachable, right?
Yeah.
It has that Hollywood gloss, but doesn't shy away from the complexities of love and relationships.
It's a feel-good movie that just happens to center a same-sex couple.
And it's not trying to be this super edgy indie film either.
Yeah.
Grappling with gritty realism.
It knows what it is, heartwarming rom-com, and it totally delivers. Which, back in 2005 when it was released, that was huge.
Think about how much has changed since then. We have so many more diverse queer stories being told.
Right. From those indie darlings to mainstream hits.
But even with all those new voices and perspectives, Imagine Me and You still holds this special place,
But for now, I think the main takeaway is that Imagine Me and You reminds us that sometimes the simplest stories are the most powerful.
Totally. It's all about connection, and that's something everyone can relate to.
Exactly. No matter who you are or who you love, everyone deserves a happy ending.
Well said.